Welcome to Assembly Calendar. I'm Mike Friesen, and with us for our program today, Assemblyman Bob Oakes. Bob Oakes represents the 130th Assembly District in New York State, an Assembly District that includes the counties of Wayne, Cayuga, and Oswego. And we want to thank you folks all throughout the region for joining us for our program today. Bob Oakes, nice to see you.
It's apple blossom season, but the apple blossoms are a little slow this year. Cool.
It's been cool.
This last week was the Lilac Festival. Apple blossoms.
The lilacs are on schedule.
Ours are a little slow
Are
too.
they a little?
Yep.
No.
But so 20,000 acres of apples in Wayne County alone.
Big business.
And it is, and it's part of the beauty. Very honestly, someday around the middle of May, you ought to take a trip out of your Albany digs and go out to Wayne County and across Lake Ontario, Orleans, Niagara, into Cayuga and Oswego County, a lot of apples and other fruits.
I need to pry myself out of our little beltway here, is what you're saying, and that would be you give me a call and invite me on up, and we'll take care of that. A lot of people don't realize, I don't think, just how big the apple industry is in your area. Even I would suspect even some of the people watching this show don't quite understand the enormity of that, how important it is to the economy of the area that you represent.
Absolutely, and actually there's been a big transformation over the last few years. It used to be, of course, a lot of apples were processed right away, made into applesauce, pies, and other things. You could freeze, some of the things to make pies later and whatever. But with the advancement of technology over the more recent years, the percentages, it used to be, and I'm guessing now, so forgive me if you're professional apple industry, but it used to be more like 70% commercial, 30%, or for processing, 30% for fresh. That's really flipped now because the storage process, you can actually pick fresh fruit in August, September, October, maybe even into early November, put that into what's called CA storage, controlled atmosphere. You kind of suck out the oxygen, put the apples to sleep, and then in January you can be pulling out apples that are in essence fresh to be sold at the supermarkets and whatever. So obviously they're best when they're right off the tree and perhaps bought from a farm market or whatever, but you get high quality throughout the years. And of course, we're always getting new varieties. It used to be you'd plant an apple tree and you might have it for 20 years or 25 years. Now, as the market goes, you might put in trees, have them for a few years and plant something else that is more needed or demanded at that point. So interesting business.
You started out by saying the apple blossoms were running a little late. But have you talked to any of your apple growers? Did the extreme cold of this past winter and this, kind of continued cold through the spring, is that hurting the apple?
Not necessarily. One of the reasons that we have a lot of orchards, that we have a lot of fruit in this state is we have a lot of water that we're up against. So when you look at Lake Erie and Lake Ontario, and then even some of the smaller lakes and along even the Hudson River and whatever, it moderates some of those temperatures in the extreme. So it was more like the length was long, but I don't think the excessive cold has been that tough. And one of the reasons the blossoms are slow right now, even when it's 75 away from the lake, it might be 62 degrees at the lake. And similarly, in the winter, it might be 10 below away from the lake and be 10 degrees or 15 degrees at the lake because of how the water moderates that.
That's interesting. Now, so a lot of your economy is tied into weather and for the crops and so forth, but it seems as if as we start looking ahead past the end of this legislative session and all, and maybe we'll come back to that a little bit later on, it's an election year. And it's an election year involving a gubernatorial race, and we're already starting to see divisions between candidates as to the state's economy and the job and business climate, and it especially seems to resonate in upstate New York. As you look at that and you start hearing the candidates and Governor Cuomo talk about the upstate economy and the business climate, what are your thoughts as you listen to the different things that are being said?
Well, a couple different things. I really think that most people, you know, we have a legislature, 150 members of the New York State Assembly, 63 senators. I would say if you polled those 213 and say, do you want a strong economy, every one of them would say, absolutely. The difference is the views and perspectives of what makes a strong economy and how do you get there. And certainly when you are New York City, or you're some of the counties around New York City, if you look at the products being either grown or manufactured, grown in farms or manufactured in local businesses, the difference of the percentage of the economy compared to upstate, certainly the area I represent, versus that New York City area, obviously there aren't a lot of farms, but there also aren't a lot of manufacturing things. So what do you need to grow something or process those items once you grow them, or to manufacture them? You need good energy and hopefully cheaper energy. You need water is typically involved in the process, so having access to quality water is important and not too expensive. And then certainly the value of the land and whatever. Those jobs also require, people might get injured a little bit more working on a farm or working for a manufacturer versus someone working behind a desk and whatever. So the perspectives from upstate and downstate tend to be different. Right. Just to give you an idea, Mike, and this isn't even including farming. I know we've talked about that, but manufacturing, out of all the private sector dollars in the greater Rochester area, in the Finger Lakes, kind of the area I represent in district, around 25% of those dollars come from manufacturing. Even though manufacturing is going down, between 20 and 25% in the greater Rochester area. Actually, the highest in the state is the southern tier, around 25 to 28%. Buffalo and Syracuse around 15%. Albany around 10%. Hudson Valley around 7%. In New York, in the metro area around New York, 1 to 3%.
Wow.
Out of manufacturing. Then you add farming on top of that. My view of the world is different than theirs. And so when you talk about Cuomo and Astorino or the candidates for governor, how to have a stronger economy, there are legitimate different perspectives, but they have to include, you can't hamper one if you have too high electric costs, too high workers' comp costs, and too high a cost to have water available. We can't compete because those people who are manufacturing them or growing them are competing with people in Pennsylvania and Connecticut, the ones right around us, Massachusetts and whatever. If you can't grow your peas or your carrots or your apples as cheaply as those people can, they're going to beat you in the market. And so when you talk about that, I know I kind of went off on a tangent a little bit there, but that's just some perspective of looking at, we have to be intentional. I think the candidates need to be asked or challenged, how do we make a stronger New York? And I think there's very legitimate issues. And we can't have an economy that's all service. And it just doesn't work in a lot of the upstate areas. We have to have a manufacturing and agriculture base to help drive this economy.
Well, there's nothing like a campaign for governor to really kind of crystallize that sort of debate and to get those issues aired and out for discussion. And I'm surprised. I tell you, even I'm a little surprised at the number you threw out there about manufacturing in the New York City metropolitan area, because you have this. I have this, an old guy's perspective, I guess, of New York City and all the factories that used to be there, and the people that would work in those factories, and you hear the stories and see. I guess that just isn't. That doesn't exist anymore.
Well, it's two things. One, it's still significant if you look at it among the whole state, but the New York City economy, 9 million people, is huge. And it includes finance, and it includes a ton of retail and services and tourism. So if you look at the total economy and say it's only 1 to 3% of it, that's still
1% of a lot is a lot.
1%, but still, it's not. They're not making product like they have.
So, what can the state do to be a better, stronger New York? I mean, as you talk about the different perspectives, and now I guess we can bring this back to the legislature and the upcoming end of this 2014 legislative session. There's that philosophical difference. You talk about the different perspectives of how you might look at the state in terms of parts of the economy, but you know, tax cuts versus more programs incentivizing businesses to want to come here, maybe.
Sure, and there are programs. The governor did a Startup New York and others, but a lot of the programs that get done end up almost picking winners and losers and saying, if you're going to be targeted like this, we can help you, but everybody else kind of, struggle out there on your own. Very honestly, we continue to step around mandate relief. We talk about it, we argue about it, but we really don't do a lot about it. Or if we do, we take a little nuanced step to it. One of the greatest overhead costs, beyond labor costs, workers' compensation costs, the cost of energy and water, is actually the cost, lost my point.
Of mandate relief?
Well,
of the mandates on
taxes. Thank you. I'm sorry. Where did that? Taxes on those businesses. And if you're taxed too high and those other costs, and you're looking at, well, I could go put that plant in Nebraska, or I could put it here, sometimes we lose out. And so that mandate relief and tax, it does matter. Yeah. And all of those things, as we're trying to bring people here or get them to expand here, we need to help create that economy that's lower cost to them so they can be competitive and they can move ahead and be successful.
You know, the governor of Texas, Rick Perry, has been traveling around the country. They're running ads in a lot of the states like New York and California, trying to show companies and industry from those states, come to Texas. Taxes are lower, we're friendlier to business and all that. And there was even some discussion about whether maybe there could be some debates between Governor Perry of Texas and Governor Cuomo of New York to talk about how you do go about attracting industry. I mean, there really are just different philosophies, different opinions on how best to make those things happen. You would think that history would already kind of prove this out, and you'd be able to look at different states in different times over the years and say, well, here's what was successful, here wasn't successful, but I guess this is something that's just going to be debated till the cows come home.
It really is, and a lot of our elections are decided on different perspectives, and I think the people need to listen, and in my perspective, we all win if we have a stronger economy that is hiring more people, that's growing. We all pick up from that, and so we need to be the most competitive we can be.
Yeah, and New York right now is lagging in a lot of areas. In fact, dead last in many of the different barometers that are out there in terms of business.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That's going to do it for us today. We're out of time. As always, I want to thank Bob Oakes for coming in and spending time with us, letting us know what's going on here at the State Capitol. If you folks want to reach out to the Assemblyman, there's how you do it. You can call the office in Lyons at 946-5166. You've also got Facebook and email address as ways to reach Bob Oakes. Again, I want to thank you folks, too, for spending your time with us, and we'll hope to see you soon for our next edition of Assembly Calendar.